A very good evening and many thanks for tuning in to Y254. It's a Monday, discussion Monday here on Y254. Monday we discuss about political things, what is happening, trending issues in our country. And tonight here on Y254 we shall be focusing on the VAT percent that has been put on petroleum products, and we want to understand what's next after this VAT. We saw Kenyans suffer last week, and with me in studio to help us to understand more about this is Calvin. He's a entrepreneur, and I also have Paul McCoy. He's a lawyer. They'll be helping us to understand what is this VAT, and by the way, why did Kenya have to have an agreement with international monetary funds? And remember, you could join our conversation tonight by sending us your comments or questions to our SMS line 22162, starting with the word Y News. Again, 22162 is the SMS line. Choose, remember to start with the word Y News. At Murani Hillary at Y254 channel is the Twitter handle to use. Hashtag is Y254 updates. Welcome to the program. My name is Dereva Hillary. Now, the International Monetary Fund entered into an agreement with Kenya in 2013 for the country to enjoy the funds credit facilities, which entailed doing away with tax exemptions in order to increase revenues and reduce budgetary deficits and ultimately reduce foreign debt. Now, the 16% VAT, which has been imposed just recently, affected on all petroleum products, which all of a sudden increased the fuel, and so Kenyans suffer. This affected the traveling, the mobility, especially in the people in the city, like here in Nairobi, transportation of goods, things coming from Mashambani to Nairobi and moving from Nairobi to other places, as well as general inflation that because it's a chain. And to begin with, one of the questions, the big questions rather, why did Kenya have to enter into an agreement with International Monetary Fund, IMF, in consideration this body or this organization? It one time misguided nations like Malawi. We know what happened during the Ebola season. Before that, they had a 3% budget for health, but they were told to reduce that. Then it happened when Ebola came, they were not able to curb the situation, and we all know what happened. Again, Ghana was the same, and another example is in 1998, that was 14th January, Indonesia was also affected in this manner, and the banking industry was affected in that country. So I want us to know, why did we have to get into this agreement? Let me begin with you, Calvin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hilary. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been overdue. You know, we started this conversation back in 2013. You know,
right,
when we passed the the act.
Yeah.
And I think it's we've been we pushed it to 2016. And I think obviously because of the obvious reason of the campaign and all that,
right?
The MPs were a bit reluctant to kind of pass the bill, and when then it was pushed up to this year in September, which you saw what happened,
right?
And the bill was passed, and right now it's only remaining with the president to sign it, and it becomes a law,
right?
But I mean, you can look at the rate we've been having, the number of loans that we have, and right now we have like 57%, 50%, 57% of our GDP is more of loan. So definitely the government's looking at different ways that it can be able to mitigate this, and it can be able to pay off the different loans that we have and all those kind of stuff. And I think that's the reason why they had to think that would be actually a way forward. But I mean, as we continue conversation, we'll need to really understand, like, is there any other alternatives apart from that?
Right. Yeah. Paul, do you think Kenya entered into an agreement blindly, or do you think whatever they agreed, because they took the advice of the International Monetary Fund, do you think we made a good decision as a country?
Thank you, Hilary, for having me on the show tonight.
Right.
And maybe it's important and necessary, maybe I put some background information and knowledge for the Mwananchi to understand about the issues of IMF, International Monetary Fund. It is very key, because sometimes we are speaking IMF, VAT, but sometimes people do not understand.
True.
Now, IMF, it's a global establishment, and it has a membership of over 189 states. And these member states, that organization has been in existence for over 70 years.
True.
And part of the reasons why the organization was established was to act as a pool, a financial pool, or let me use the word a bank for that matter, for the states, whereby the credits can be made available to the states, and this institution can also act as a financial advisor to various states and organizations. And in delivering its mandate, you will find that, for example, there are several objectives or things that IMF does. For example, one, it will offer advisory to states. It will also give and support or give financial assistance to the states and all that. Now, it also, again, maybe you may say it also offers some form of insurance, financial insurance or guarantee as a safety measure to the states, because this is important, because sometimes states go through economic distress, and sometimes their economies are doing poorly, and that is why it is very necessary for them to have a cushion, so that in the event of economic distress or financial upheavals, they can run to them and get some financial assistance. And indeed, that is why Kenya indeed ran to them to get what we call standby credit facility, which Kenya can always run to frequently or occasionally where need be.
Yeah, actually, there's a time Kenya also entered into the same agreement. They taxed the university things to do with the fee and everything, just to see like we are able to get more credits from outside. Now, as a Kenyan or as a citizen of Kenya, you have been affected in one way or the other, and I want to get that feeling. That past 1 week, how has it been as for you, Calvin, moving from your residence to a place of work, or maybe wherever you wanted to go? How did that affect, not only in transport but in any other area? How are you affected?
Yeah, I mean, as Mwananchi kawaida, I think, I mean, the effect is not really felt right now, like immediately, but I mean, especially people going outside the, you know, the Nairobi, like, you know, traveling to Nakuru has been a little bit expensive, and I think that's the effect that we're seeing right now, is more going, but the local transportation is still almost the same. You know, we still use almost the same, you know, almost the same fare, you know, living from different estates and all that, coming to town. So the effect has not been really felt, but I mean, the effect is going to be there, you know, once the president, you know, signed and now it's become a law, and that's the reason why you see right now there's a bit of challenge in terms of fuel. It's not easy for you to get fuel, because most of the suppliers of either petrol or diesel or kerosene are actually holding the product right now, because they actually anticipating that, you know what, this thing might be signed and it might come to officially to a law, and then we're going to now sell our products at a very high price and make some money. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of effect, you know, going from, you know, from now henceforth. There's going to be a lot of problem in terms of, you know, because a lot of products are going to increase in terms of prices, because I mean, fuel is key in all different sectors, and especially in the manufacturing sector, and I mean, almost every household depends on either manufacturing products that are manufactured, or pretty much maybe agricultural products, and most of them actually come up country, so the transport are going to be used, and all these are going to be calculated to the common Mwananchi to be able to pay that.
Sure.
So for me, I can say right now there's really no much effect, but actually the effect is almost being foreseen. Yeah.
Paul, do you see do you see it otherwise, or did you suffer
Oh, Hillary.
in your case?
Yes, I have, as maybe as said and mentioned, that there is not really much effect, so much change for the past 1 week, because people are still speculating. Okay, what I've witnessed, of course, there are those long queues in the petrol stations. You go to fuel the car, and I think there was, 2-3 days ago, and there were long lines until like traffic police were to come in and maybe control the entry to petrol stations and exit. So that tells you, and also, of course, there is the issue of hoarding, what he has mentioned, and which is unfortunate. And I happened to pass through a petrol station and asked one of the attendants, and you people, why are you, for example, like you are hoarding the fuel today in anticipation of escalating the prices, but the same never happens when there is a drop. When there is a drop, it is never that way. So those are some of the challenges, but I think maybe if the president does not really sign it as it is expected by us, really it's going to cause a lot of harsh moments for the citizens.
I still want to begin from you there. What alternatives does Kenya have instead of taxing petroleum products? Because you see it is affected, but at the end of it all, it will end up affecting like every other side of the economy. What alternatives do we have as a nation?
Now, Hillary, maybe my thought on that may be disappointing somehow to Kenyans, because I was looking at the alternatives that we may have, and maybe the alternatives that I may propose are somehow, one, they may be lengthy, they may not bear fruits in short term. Because as a country, of course, we are laboring with the issues of wage bill. And when we talk of wage bill, of course, we are looking at the constitution, and we have always said, as much as Kenyans, we are enjoying a good constitution. We call it a progressive constitution. We are also experiencing the challenge of being a bloated constitution, creating a lot of offices, both national government and county government. And there are a lot of, again, offices which are always created. For example, I was asking myself about, there are like offices like political advisors. You'll always see even governors creating and, and hiring a lot of people, which are not necessarily defined. And there is the question about, for example, bloated parliament, talk of Senate, talk of National Assembly. And all these are measures that as Kenyans, I think we need to come and maybe rethink about our model of governance structure. So because unless we address that question, then I think that we are likely still to experience a lot of problems, because VAT, we are speaking about only 70 billion. To me, 70 billion is a very small money. So, in quote, small money as compared to actually what we incur as a country. So, it's a long-term maybe project in mitigating that issue of.
Very, very true. I want to believe all of us can agree that Wanjiku has been overladen by this burden of paying the governors, the 47 governors we have. They have to get paid. We have the MCs, we have the senators, we have every public office we have to, and still we pay tax, and still the products that we buy, we still pay tax as well. So what alternatives do you think we have?
I mean, for me, just to bring it back to what my brother said. I mean, the reason why, obviously, one of the reason why we're trying to, why the IMF and the government, decided on this way is basically they were trying to see how they can be able to raise more revenue internally, and if you look at what my brother said, if you look at even the wages that we're anticipating to get in terms of taxes because of the VAT, it's only going to be around 71 billion, and that this year's our budget itself is 3.4 trillion, and we, if you remember, we still have a budget deficit of around 680 billion. So you could try to see that even for us going for that particular product, including VAT on the petroleum products and all that, it's really not going to have a very big impact. But we're kind of looking at, the best way forward to go with that is we could look at some irrational decisions. Like we could look at maybe having the VAT, we could actually look at how can we have excise duty in different products, because you can't again charge, you can't just have a stand, a particular stand on tax on different petroleum products, because we have, like, for example, DSL, we have kerosene, we have and all these things are actually being used differently. And you've always seen that, for example, petrol and kerosene, they're always taxed highly because they kind of looked at as harmful also product to human being and all that. So I think the best alternative is to be able to look at maybe focusing on excise duty and also reducing administration cost. I think it's high time the government look at how can they actually reduce the administration cost. And what my brother said, that we have so many offices, we have all this, can we be able to trim this down to be able to narrow that kind of expense and be able to save quite a lot of money. And again, our president has also been trying very hard to fight corruption, which I think would be the best way to go. But maybe the resources that we get, are we really able to channel the money that we recover and all the possession, the different property that we possess, are we able to actually channel the back to invest in terms of paying all this debt? Because you see, our main focus is how we're going to pay our debt. Right.
All right, we will be taking a very short break, but when we come back now, we will be looking at, is there a law that protects a citizen from exorbitant taxation? And also we will be looking at what happens if the president signs and what happens if he doesn't sign. Discussion Monday takes a break here on Y254. Stay tuned.
Y254. Imagine.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing
DJ Fiesta.
Mr. MP, the MVP. Missy kiongozi napigania kwa champion boy lete bwana Samata. Nimekoma nimekula mimea nilikugia mabajia zote kwenye sinia. Na tano zaidi wembe kama mwerevu usishangae. Hagada.
I don't fear man, I was born here man. Ukitaka kufa na kununulia gun, leo soda no beer man, we are done.
Now this week on The Buzz on your number one new channel Y254, we ain't keeping quiet.
Nifanye kuwafurahisha madijaya wapagawe, mwisho harufu kisha mpake shambutu sinyamazi.
Beryl is not keeping quiet, and we also are not planning to keep quiet. We will be having Chopperman, Beryl, and a little girl who's only 7 years old by the name of Hope Wamboi. You sure do not want to miss it. 7:30 p.m. only on Y254. Keep it relaxed.
Y254. Imagine.
Many thanks for keeping us company. And if you just tuned in, this is Y254 Discussion Monday. Tonight we are talking about the VAT taxation that was put on petroleum products, and we just tackled a few areas, and now we want to see if there's a law that protects Kenya from exorbitant taxation, and if the president signs the bill, and if he doesn't sign the bill, what happens next. Keep talking to us. 22160 is the SMS line. Choose. Remember to start with the word Y News. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for having you here. Now, how will the taxman ensure there is efficiency in collection of the tax, and how do we ensure they will be used appropriately? Because already we know what is happening, and thanks to the president, the corruption thing is now being fought right, left, and center. Let me begin with you, Calvin.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, the taxmen still have a lot of work. And,
if we could raise your mic, please.
And Rotich has a lot of work to be able to make sure that, you know, he's able to collect enough taxes, and especially to meet our budget.
Right.
And I think there's still a lot of strategy that need to be put in place, and, you know, be able to curb a lot of, you know, people who don't pay tax and all those kind of stuff. And, you know, all that kind of measure to actually widen the gap, because I mean, this year they did pretty well in terms of tax collection, but I kind of feel there's still a lot of measures that actually should be taken in terms of having more people paying tax, and also even, you know, probably maybe imposing tax on particular products, and maybe increasing tax on particular products that are not very essential, like, you know, the petroleum products and all that. So I think that's what is needed, and again, you know, what we talked previously in terms of kind of like cutting down in terms of administration cost. That has actually, we really have a lot of miscellaneous kind of administration that actually we can get away with and save some little money that we can use it to pay our loans. And I think also there need to be a lot of restructuring in terms of even developmental projects, because I know in the past few years we've been focusing a lot in terms of, you know, development projects, which are really, really good, but how we really focusing on long term, because, you know, a development project is very, very long term. What kind of period are we going to pay? So we need to rethink around that particular way as well.
All right, Paul, we have cases of tax exemption or evasion rather for so many people, including your boss. There's a case going on tax evasion. How do you think the taxman will ensure efficiency in tax collection and make sure this money, when it goes to the government, is used in the right way?
Okay, I think, Hilary, just before that I'll come to it, I wanted to maybe just to mention, when he was speaking about, we need also to look at the taxes that Kenyans pay. Kenyans pay a lot of taxes. In fact, to say that Kenya is one of the highest countries in terms of the number of taxes that citizens pay. If you mention them, there are quite a number. Speak of, for example, even fuel. We are speaking, there is even like fuel levy. You know, apart from now the VAT which is being introduced, there are a lot of, for example, on properties, there is another one that came recently, 5% capital gains tax. And those taxes are so many. Then what happens when people feel that they are being overtaxed, so to speak? There is likelihood of tax evasion. There is likelihood of, for example, people becoming distressed, and people feeling that, you know, we are tired, this is too much for us. And that in itself, when people are not motivated to trade, when are not motivated to feel proud to be citizens of Kenya, for example, that in itself, it is not a good thing for business prosperity. Now, back to your question, how can we ensure there is tax efficiency? And I do hope that when we speak about tax efficiency, we are also looking about, of course, increasing the number of taxes.
True.
And to my mind, there is no better way apart from, one, increasing the number of investments in Kenya, both local and foreign. When we have thriving businesses, for example, in our countries, when we have people coming to invest in our country, that in itself really opens up the bracket of income for the citizen, of companies, and it translates to, of course, higher payment of tax. So one is to ensure good business environment. and ensuring good business environment. Of course, overtaxation cannot be one of them. Totally not. So that should be the overriding one. Then number two, of course, there is you have mentioned about there is the issues of tax exemption. Of course, I understand there is then the law allows the government at times to give exemptions to organizations or individuals for one reason or the other. And I understand, for example, even persons with disabilities, they are given some form of exemptions for obvious reasons, for example, and that is necessary.
True.
But however, to me, it's more than just exemptions. We need to look at investments more.
All right. As we wind up, because we are running out of time, I still want to begin from you there as a lawyer. Is there a law that protects Kenyans from being taxed exorbitantly?
Now, there is not necessarily the express law that maybe defines what exorbitant taxation is. However, tax, it is the basic revenue that governments across the board, and even during the days of Jesus, that is the only revenue that is always used by the government to build the country and the state. And when you look, there are what you call principles of taxation. One of the principles of taxation always says that that the tax there is a principle of productivity, in that the revenue which is generated through taxation should be sufficient to fund the projects and the running of the state. So to that extent, I may say there is not necessarily a clear cut line or a provision of what maybe exorbitant is. However, what is important is, citizens can pay even 70% tax. But then the question is, what does that tax do? To me, that is important. You can pay even 90% tax, but we are assured
we should see the work.
We have good infrastructure. We are not struggling. We are not hustling as citizens.
Calvin, Kenyans are already struggling with the tax that has been put on petroleum, but we've been being taxed over the years for other things, but for this one, Kenyans feel like they have been pressed to pay tax. Speaking of the big four agendas, like he just said about the health, we need to see health. Now, do you think as a Kenyan, there's a way you should know akimusinipitishie hapa? If you work in say mama mboga si lipe ushuru, because actually you see them wanakibishananga na kanjo like every time. We have the hawkers, we have people in the rurals or in urban rural areas where they have vibandas, but they have to still pay that 50 shillings, that 30 shillings. Actually, is that important to them?
No, obviously, government, they raise a lot of revenue in terms of even the mamambogas, because there's always a lot below the pyramid. There's in the pyramid, actually below the pyramid is where actually government gets a lot of money. Because if you tax the mamamboga 20 shillings today, tomorrow is going to pay another 20 bob tomorrow. So it's something very it's going to actually be a lot over time. If you can create that maybe in a year, this person might actually pay a lot of money. And there's so many of them. It's one person here, one person here. It's not like the way the tax that you imposed in maybe for shops and all that. So and I think obviously the government need to come up with the measures, because I mean, if we have very good process of collecting tax, and we don't really need even to tax this mamamboga and all that, obviously the tax has gone to different products, like you have to pay, you're going to pay income tax, you're going to still pay VAT in almost every single item that you buy, and I mean all that channels down. So at the end of the day, if you can calculate the kind of tax that you pay per month, it's actually a lot, and just as he said. So I think there's an effect of the mamamboga is feeling the pinch. But even for us as a country, for us to be able to meet the big four agenda, which the president's been really focusing on that, but we can't actually meet the big four agenda if we're going to have, if we don't have, for example, if our fuel prices are high, because all these things actually need fuel, all these things need energy. So I think there's need to be a little bit of a twist, even when the president is going to be looking into the bill. There really need to be a lot of consideration. There really need to be a lot of restructuring and be able to come up with a better solution than just imposing that tax on the people, which for me I think it's not a very good idea at the moment. But though we need to raise the revenue.
All right, I want us to end with this one question, and this is for you, lawyer Paul. what happens if the president signs the bill, and what happens if he doesn't sign?
Of course, if the president signs the bill, it has to continue being operational, because it's already actually operational.
Right.
It's nothing. Okay, there is, of course, I understand there is a court order, nevertheless, which has been ignored up to now, which is unfortunate. It's a form of manifestation of impunity.
Right. The executive was ignored.
Yes, because if at all they could have actually been reversed those notices,
right,
and let the status quo remain.
Yeah.
And so if the president signed that, the V8 will continue, and we are going to experience, of course, the challenges that are going to come with it. Then if the president does not sign, of course, he has two options. Number one, there is Article 115 of the Constitution. That is what it provides, what the president can do if he doesn't sign.
Right. Which
after
is
14 days. After 14 days, it actually supposed to become effective or automatic operation. So it takes effect regardless of if he remains silent.
So either way, where are we benefiting? If he signs or if he doesn't sign?
Okay. Then if he doesn't sign,
right,
he can also maybe take it back to the parliament by doing a memorandum, maybe with some recommendations. And hopefully maybe the parliament, in their own wisdom, they can try maybe to come up with other mitigation measures.
Yeah, I think I think that's what is going to go. I'm looking at the situation where it's going to go back to the parliament,
right,
and for them to be able to look at some of the loopholes and seeing how they can be able to fill the gap.
Right.
But I mean, if he signs, then I think we're still going to have a little bit of challenge, especially now that we're still recovering from election year. We just 2017 is just passed by, and we're still recovering, and even companies recovering. So I think there's still a lot of things to be looked at in that particular regard.
All right, many thanks, gentlemen, for coming and sharing. Right,
just a few seconds.
Right.
As Kenyans, in the subsequent elections,
right,
we don't only have to look at what the government or politicians are promising us,
right,
but they need also to tell us how they are going to fund it.
True.
So they need to be so clear, how are they going to fund
the
projects which they have.
We were told of the roads and the hospitals. Yes, now we can feel the burden is all on us. It's not them, it's all about again, many thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting us as well. We really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right, back home, many thanks for keeping us company. It has been an awesome discussion, and I want to believe tonight you have learned something about the VAT and any other thing concerning taxation. Coming up next is Y Mashariki. Stay tuned. My name is Dereva Hillary. Have a good night.